Hi YouTube, Darth here. You aren't dreaming, this is my first video in probably 5-6 weeks almost. And needless to say, I have been busy, but maybe not in the way that you might think. Yes, there's the usual holiday stuff that happens this time of year, and work and some other things that came up, but most of this time I've been spending playing either Battlefront or Battlefield. After my Battlefront review, I actually wanted to give the game still a fair shake and try to play out as much fun as I could from that game. So I ended up playing it for a couple of weeks there and didn't make any videos because I honestly couldn't think of anything to make based on that game's subject matter. Most of my videos tend to be tutorials, and I honestly have such a low opinion of the skill required to play that game that I couldn't think of anything that people would need to know. So eventually it came time to get back to Battlefield. But I discovered that my skills had atrophied some, so I had to find a way to get back in the game. When I want to get back in the cadence of gunfire and gunplay for Battlefield 4, generally what I'll do is switch to the burst fire guns because it's sort of how I learned to play the game in the first place. I find the M16 and M4 to be somewhat limiting in the respect that it forces you to fire at a very specific cadence. Whereas the weapons in Battlefront tend to let you just hose down your enemy, the weapons in Battlefield 4 obviously require a little bit of skill to use. Oh, and by the way, while playing Battlefront, I very much missed having a map. As I was saying about gunplay, Battlefront has no concept of spread while moving, and many other gameplay concepts from Battlefield 4 are distilled down to very simple concepts for that game. Another nice thing about Battlefield 4 compared to Battlefront is for the player that's paying attention to it, the minimap is a wealth of information. Once I got readjusted to Battlefield's mechanics, it was pretty easy to get back in the swing of things. The first thing I did when I got back to Battlefield is I started playing a lot of Dragon Valley. Now, this map wasn't really new to me as I had played it on the CTE quite a bit before, but it was new to everybody else, so I wanted to see how the community sort of reacted to this. And I had about the same experience as I did on the CTE. It's actually a pretty fun map despite its size. There's a lot of great infantry play on the center of the map, and there's a lot of great vehicle slaughter on the outskirts of the map. And while this wouldn't have been my first pick for a map to bring back from previous Battlefields, my first pick probably would have been Sign Crossing or Grand Bazaar from Battlefield 3, I do really appreciate this map for what it is. And while I think the 8-flag layout is kind of weird and leads to some longer games, it's not nearly as bad as it was in the CTE, so I think they have managed to fix that a little bit. But other than the new content, there really wasn't a whole lot of updates to the game for the winter patch. And that kind of has me wondering what we're going to see for Battlefield 4 in the coming weeks and months in 2016. Now, the last time I had checked, the developers had said that they weren't going to close the CTE anytime soon and they would continue into 2016, but what exactly they were going to do with it, they haven't said yet. So nobody really knows if we have any new content coming to Battlefield 4 in 2016, or any new patches, or anything of the sort. From various sources, we know that Dice LA is working on a new game. We don't know what that game is, we don't know what franchise that game is for, and we don't know when that game is coming along or what kind of development needs it will take from Battlefield 4. So I'm definitely going to keep my eyes peeled on the Dice developers to see what's coming up. Because so far as I know, we have no solid indications. So what did I fill the rest of that time with? Well, there were a couple of games that I happened to play over the break, and I've mentioned one of them already, Battlefront. Now, I mentioned in my review that the fun in this game is rather evasive, and while that remains true, I think I've managed to come to terms with what this game actually is. And for me, it's my own personal Darth Vader simulator. If you follow me at all on Twitter, and by the way, if you ever wonder where I'm at or what I'm doing, you really should follow me on Twitter because I'm pretty much on there consistently, and if you ever have a question about, hey Darth, where are you? Ask me on Twitter. I'm there and I'll answer you, I promise. Well, most of the time at least. Anyway, I consistently roast this game on Twitter, mostly because I find it to be exceptionally frustrating. However, there are two exceptions. The first one is when I can go on a hero tear, it feels wonderful. The other thing I appreciate about Battlefront is the rounds are fast. Assuming I can find a game, which is a challenge in and of itself on PC, let me tell you, in the time it would take me to play a conquest round in Battlefield, I can usually play 3 to 4 rounds of Battlefront, which is usually enough time for me to find at least one Vader. We all make our fun in our own ways. This gameplay footage is from the new map they released in early December, the Battle of Jakku. And while the cinematics of what's going on around you are kind of interesting, the map itself is pretty flat and boring. So I'm really not filled with a whole lot of expectations for the longevity of this game. Next up, I played a game I can't even talk about. I can't show you anything from it. Suffice to say it's an upcoming title. When the game gets closer to release and possibly allows people to talk more about it, maybe I'll say something more about it. There's even a chance I may dedicate some portion of this channel to it. Now that I've been as legally cryptic as possible, I'll move on to the next game that I played over the break. Finally, Steam had its winter sale, and despite it being somewhat underwhelming for me personally, I did manage to reconnect with a game I had played earlier this year, City Skylines. Now, if you haven't tried out this game yet and you're a fan of city simulators like SimCity, I would highly recommend you give this one a shot. City Skylines manages to take everything that was terrible about SimCity 2013, spin it on its head, and laugh at the developers from Maxis for having made such a terrible city simulator. What got me back into City Skylines was trying out the After Dark expansion, which had come out some point earlier this year, but I was still wrapped up in Battlefield and didn't have the time to play it. While it doesn't add a whole lot of interesting content to the game, I do have to say for the $10 price point on top of a $30 price point for the base game originally that I paid, I have to say that this game is still an amazing value. And I ended up putting up an additional 50 or so hours while I was playing this game over my break. So now for the big question, what am I planning on doing next? Well, my sincere plan is to play Battlefield as much as possible in the upcoming weeks and months. And that also involves updating this channel as much as possible. Obviously, there's a lot of things that can interfere with those plans, but we'll see how it pans out. Anyways, I hope you all had a wonderful holiday break like I did, and I'm looking forward to getting back into Battlefield. If you're ever wondering where I'm at if I'm absent, be sure to follow me on Twitter and I will tell you where I'm at. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.